Hi, Dr. Heidi Grant here with another episode of 3 Things to Do. Before we go any further, please hit that like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get all of the amazing episodes Season 3 of 3 Things to Do has to offer. Today's topic is one that I think is going to be relevant for a lot of us. We've talked before on this program about how difficult it can be to experience a lot of change. And really, that's something I think most of us have been touched by, particularly during the pandemic. Change can be very, very difficult. Human beings are wired to not want change and uncertainty. It doesn't feel good when our habits and our expectations get disrupted. And a lot of us have been dealing with that. And we've talked before about some strategies you can use to yourself be a little bit better at managing change. But today what I want to talk about is helping other people to manage change. Whether that's in the context of a personal relationship, perhaps your partner or a family member or a friend who's coping with a lot of change and uncertainty, or perhaps if you're a leader in an organization and you're helping to try to get all of your people successfully through a lot of the changes that the pandemic has brought on, as well as sort of other factors that your business is dealing with. So if you want to help people deal with change, part of the problem is that often our intuitions can kind of take us down the wrong road. We have a lot of good intentions when it comes to supporting other people through change, but sometimes we say and do exactly the wrong things. So today we want to talk about 3 things to do to help other people manage change. Now, the first thing to do, and this is really important and probably the thing that most of us get wrong right out of the gate, it's really important to acknowledge their fears, right? Too often we try to tell people, don't worry about that, don't be anxious about that, don't be afraid of that. That's really the last thing they want to hear. None of us like to be told that the things we're worried about, that we're feeling anxious about, that we're afraid of, are not worth being afraid of, right? That we're somehow being foolish. In fact, it is natural and normal to be uncomfortable with change. Human beings are built that way, right? So for the most part, what you really want to do is just start out by validating and acknowledging their fears, saying, I understand why you're feeling the way you do. It's natural and normal to be anxious, thinking about all of the changes you're having to navigate. And from that place, people can relax a little bit. They feel better, they feel validated, and that's the kind of place they can hear you from, right? Then everything you're about to say next, they're more receptive to, because you began by making them feel a little bit better about the fact that they're feeling fairly terrible right now. Now, the second thing to do to help other people manage change is to remind them of their past successes. This isn't the first change any of us have ever had to deal with. Many of us have had to deal with very significant changes in our lives, and it's been difficult, but we got through it, right? We managed the change. But in these moments, sometimes when we're dealing with new changes, it's almost as if we forget that that's true. We forget that in the past, we dealt with obstacles that were at least as big, if not bigger. And we managed to be successful. And yet we forget that. So that's something very powerful that you can do for somebody who's dealing with a lot of change and uncertainty, is help them reconnect to those memories. Help remind them of who they are and the challenges they've overcome in the past that are at least as large as the ones that they're dealing with now. And that provides people with a really powerful sense of confidence in themselves, which is something that's very easily lost when we're afraid and we're thinking about an uncertain future. The third thing to do to help people manage change is to set expectations for a rocky road. And what I mean by that is, again, very often with the best intentions, we try to sugarcoat what change is going to be like. We try to tell people it'll be fine, it won't be a big deal. Think about the positive, think about how great it's going to be, when that really isn't the reality. Change is hard. Uncertainty is difficult. The road to change is filled with mistakes and setbacks and disappointments and frustrations and a lot of hard work. And it's much, much better to meet people with that truth, to tell them, look, I believe we're going to get through this and we're going to end up in a better place, but the road's going to be a little rocky. You may make some mistakes. Things may not always be the way you want them to be, and that's okay, right? Because that's what it's like for all of us, and we're all in this together. Setting those expectations, those realistic expectations for what change is going to be like, helps people to prepare themselves emotionally and feel okay about it when those setbacks and mistakes inevitably occur. So let's go through those 3 things to do one more time to help other people manage change. The first is to acknowledge their fears. Begin by reassuring them that it's natural and normal to be a little bit nervous when it comes to change. That's okay. We're all in this together. The second thing, remind them of their past successes. Remind them of the times they've overcome obstacles as big, if not bigger, than the ones they're facing now. And that will do a lot to help them restore their confidence in themselves. And finally, set expectations that the road might get a little rocky. And that's okay too. It helps people to feel okay when the setbacks and mistakes that are unavoidable invariably occur. And it helps them to persist until we finally work through those changes and do end up in a place that's even better than the one where we started. So thank you again for tuning in to this week's episode of 3 Things to Do. Once again, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. And remember to tune in next week for another episode of 3 Things to Do. See you then.